You see, this is the problem with left-wing environmental activists. They claim that we need a high-speed rail and we shouldn't fly anymore. Heavens, the Green New Deal is our only hope. Climate change, climate change, climate change. But then they try and stop a high-speed rail from being built because it's going to go through flora and fauna. You know what, man? There's no appeasing them because there's not one faction of environmental or animal rights activists. AOC and Greta Thunberg and whoever else can come out and say, how dare you? How dare you? But then when you actually say, okay, fine, we're going to build a high-speed rail, someone else comes out and goes, how dare you? You're going to cut down the trees. Well, what do you want us to do, man? If we got to build a train, we got to cut down some trees. You know what? There's no solution. There really isn't. Because the activists aren't part of like a unified group for the most part. So they're at odds with each other while claiming to be part of the same fight. And this is literally what you see in the streets. They call it diversity of tactics. So they can never really accomplish anything because half the groups, the only thing they agree on is they're going to throw a brick through a window, but they don't agree on what their actual goal is. HS2 begins evicting activists from protest site after 2 years. What are you talking about after 2 years? AOC put out that Green New Deal trash like 2 years ago. Why would activists try and stop a high-speed rail project when other activists are claiming we need high-speed rails? Yeah, I give up. Welcome to our absurd world. Well, let's read the story from The Guardian. Environmental activists say the controversial rail project is destroying flora and fauna. Yeah, I'm sorry that's the case. So here's what they'll probably argue. They'll say something like, well, then maybe you should allow us to determine where the rail can go through. Oh, you want like a train that goes in like crazy directions and all that stuff? HS2 has begun evicting a group of environmental protesters who have been living at a camp along the route of the rail project for more than 2 years. Dozens of police and bailiffs are at the Harville Road site in the Colney Valley in the London borough of Hillingdon. The protesters are opposing the eviction and claim HS2 and the bailiffs are acting unlawfully as they have not served the demonstrators with high court eviction notices ordering them to vacate the land. 3 protesters have been arrested at the camp, which was established in October 2017. Since then, groups of environmental protesters, many from the Green Party and Extinction Rebellion, have been a permanent presence on the site, monitoring HS2's work and documenting what they say is destruction of flora and fauna. Opponents of HS2 have pointed to its spiraling costs. Spiraling costs? The Green New Deal makes no sense because it would cost trillions of dollars. Okay, man. Let's look to our neighbors across the pond. When they tried to build a high-speed rail, and the left came out and said, it's too expensive and you're tearing down the trees and hurting the animals. Yet over here, they're proposing the Green New Deal resolution of which no one voted for, funnily. Or funny, what's the word? I've heard that word before. I don't think it's a word. Anyway, it's funny that they're going to propose getting rid of the planes to build high-speed trains, including trains to Hawaii. But then when they try and do it in the UK, look what we're getting, man. The Colney Valley Nature Reserve is home to a variety of fauna and flora, including bats, owls, and osprey. Protesters claim that pile driving into an aquifer, an underground layer of water bearing permeable rock on the site, which supplies almost a quarter of London's water, will cause serious damage to this water supply. HS2 denies there will be any damage. Now, I can respect this. They're saying, look, man, you're gonna go through this wildlife preserve. Why? What do you think a train will do? What are you gonna do? Are trains gonna go like make a huge 70-mile detour? Yeah, you're gonna build trains through some natural preserves. Okay, that's one of the problems. It's one of the benefits of having planes. Planes go over things. There's no like flora and fauna permanently structured in the sky that we have to tear through. For the most part, the birds in the sky move around and they leave. They say a report from Lord Berkeley, a dissenting member of a panel reviewing the HS2 project, claims the costs are completely out of control. I can respect that. If the costs are out of control, it's an excellent reason to reject this. And that's one of the problems with the Green New Deal. It is understood HS2 is carrying out 2 different kinds of enforcement action on the Colney Valley site. One based on a high court order obtained on November 28th, granting it possession of a particular part of the site. And the second based on the HS2 Act passed by Parliament, which officials say gives them the right to obtain possession of the land from which they are evicting protesters. The site is in the Ruislip Northwood and Pinner constituency of the Conservative MP David Simmons. The constituencies of John McDonnell and Boris Johnson are in the same borough. There are 5 anti-HS2 protest camps along the rail route. Protesters fear that if the Colney Valley camp is demolished, the others will follow. Speaking at the site, Sarah Green said, "This eviction is totally undermining our right to protest and freedom of assembly, which has been granted to us by the High Court. People are being made homeless without being given the opportunity to go to court to contest this eviction." Green and a second protester, Laura Hughes, walked free from court last July after a prosecution against them collapsed. Both had been charged with aggravated trespass for protesting against HS2 work on the Colne Valley site. Is it Colne Valley? I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. A district judge, Deborah Wright, dismissed the case after she said it was not possible to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the protesters were trespassing on land in possession of HS2. I don't care about this. Let's look at this. America's trains are a drag. The Green New Deal wants to fix that. From February of last year, high-speed trains already compete with planes in many parts of the world. They also have far lower carbon emissions. Wow, we should build high-speed trains. Except the protesters will probably protest that too. Check it out. Ever since the midterm elections, there's been quite a bit of buzz about the possibility of a Green New Deal, a comprehensive national plan to tackle climate change and inequality all in one. Oh, inequality. You see, that's why I oppose it for the most part. Because it's so vague in its particulars, the resolution has become something of a Rorschach test as observers try to figure out how a Green New Deal would materialize in the real world. They say it's hard to know what it looked like. There was an FAQ was taken down. Specifically, the section of the FAQ on transportation calls to build out high-speed rail at scale, where air travel stops becoming necessary. The resolution itself doesn't mention air travel at all, but does call for the goal of investing in clean, affordable, and accessible transportation and high-speed rail. Let me say something. Let's say you have a high-speed train. How many trains could be on it at once? How many tracks will you need to build? Did you know that, like, let's say Chicago, they'll do back-to-back flights from like Chicago to Philly. They'll do Chicago travels all over the world actually, but there are probably, I don't know, hundreds to thousands of flights per day. Now let's say you have train tracks and there's like 20 that go out of the city. How many trains could leave at once? See, the thing about planes is that though they take off from the same runway, they actually can diverge into 3 dimensions, above, below, at angles. Yeah, trains can't do that. Trains stay on the track. So there's it's much more expensive and limiting to do these trains. Not to mention the bigger problem of activists trying to shut them down. But I'm a big fan of high-speed rail, especially like long-range maglev or like Hyperloop. Let's do it, man. I'm totally down. We're not going to get rid of planes, okay? But we can still improve our trains. Like high-speed rails, the ones we have now are pretty crummy. Let's read a little bit more. They say, for a big, ambitious plan to fight climate change, it would make perfect sense to target transit in general and air travel in particular. Planes, cars, shipping is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. Surging air travel demand helped fuel the rise in U.S. emissions after years of decline. And aircraft are extremely difficult to decarbonize. While electrification is coming out for cars, trucks, and buses, no battery or fuel cell is going to fly anyone across the Pacific anytime soon, and it's because weight to energy ratio. But let's go back to what's happening in the UK. See, I don't care about the particulars of what they're doing in court, but I want to read a bit about what they say as we wrap this one up. They say a spokesman for HS2 said, "This is land that is legally possessed by HS2. Protests such as this are costly to the taxpayer and are a threat to the security and safety of the public and our workers." Wrong answer. What the spokesman should have said is that we are in line with the Green New Deal and progressive activism in helping reduce carbon emissions from airplanes. But these right-wing fascists want to ensure fossil fuel industries can survive. That's the game they play, isn't it? That's what they'd say about anybody else. The spokesman went on to say, "We understand people feel strongly about the project and that they want us to hear their views, which is why we have numerous channels through which they can make their feelings understood. Investment in state-of-the-art high-speed line is critical for the UK's low-carbon transport future." You see? "Will provide much-needed rail capacity up and down the country and is integral to rail projects in the North and Midlands, which will help rebalance the UK economy." How funny. They literally are trying to reduce their carbon and activists are protesting it. Let me stress this point. They are literally preaching about lowering their carbon footprint and activists have shut them down. Why should anyone treat these people in good faith if this is what they're doing in the UK? And therein lies the big problem. How do we actually solve environmental issues if they're going to protest every single aspect of every single thing being done? The answer is you can't. You can't. Vox can preach all day and night, but remember when Vox said a new labor rights bill is going to reshape the gig economy in California and protect workers, a victory for the progressive left. And then a few months later when it passes, Vox lays off hundreds of employees. Therein lies the big problem. I want to help the economy. I want to help the environment. I want to improve things for people. I want to get health care. But come on, man. I know the activists in the UK are not the same as the activists in the US, but if left-wing activists protest literally everything, they're literally trying to build the high-speed rails that AOC's been talking about, and activists came and said, yeah, well, you're not tearing down these trees, so what are we supposed to do? Okay? Just stop traveling? I don't know what to tell you, man. I'll keep this one short. I got one more silly segment coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.